Chapter 11. Marvellous Modifications. Joe was winning, much to everyone's disgust, for he was far from gracious in victory. Fedor swore and pushed away from the table. The fire was burning low, and he stalked over to hurl a few logs at it. Behind him, humming "Another One Bites the Dust," Joe restored the tribe's board. "Next." "I'll have a go," a new female voice announced. Joe looked up in surprise when a slender woman sat down and fished around in the box, snapping up Sam's ninja figurines. I don't mean to be rude, but who are you?" Joe asked. "I'm Selina." They waited, but no further details were forthcoming. Selina did, however, place her piece on the board. "Game on, short stuff," she said with a smile, and leaned back in her chair. Joe huffed, adjusting his glasses. Sam grinned at Veronique. They sat up, and even Fedor edged closer. "So I assume you all know what a reader is?" Selina asked, deploying another of her assassins. She had straight dark hair, cropped into a bob. Her fringe fell across her face as she bent over the board. She wore simple, functional clothing, cargo trousers, knee-length boots, and a fur-lined tan jacket. The readers are the academics, quick students with a capacity to store vast amounts of knowledge." Joe recited Reuben's words verbatim. Selina looked up. Sam saw grey-green eyes beneath her smoky lids, and a small scar across her right eyebrow. The stud piercing in her nose gave her an edgy look. She was probably around the same age as Jenny, and he wondered why she was there. They had seen no one else but their trainer and the monks all week. "Well, yes," Selina replied, "but there's a bit more to the job than that." She added another warrior, drawing Joe's attention back to the board. "Are you part of a cadre?" Veronique asked. Sam's eyes widened as the penny dropped. "Did D'Angelo send you?" "Maybe." Joe wriggled. "Oh, come on. Are you a reader? Which cadre are you from?" "Warmind," she laughed. "And yes, I'm a reader." She chewed her lip before adding another piece. "You're not bad at this." Joe beamed. However, his delight was short-lived when his first samurai was escorted back to the barracks. Sam heard Fedor give a satisfied grunt. "OMG," Joe whined. "Whose side are you on?" The decision was unanimous. "Hers." "Oh, very nice." He pretended to reach over his shoulder. "Would anyone like their axe back?" Sam could tell Veronique was intrigued by their mysterious visitor. The girl was watching the woman with an intense expression on her face. "Please, go on," she urged her. Selina gave Veronique a sideways glance. "What would you like to know?" Joe dived in before anyone else could draw breath. "Are you on a mission now?" "I am." "Please say it's to beat him at tribes," implored Fedor. They all snickered, except Joe, who simply began humming the Mission Impossible theme tune. "Where's the rest of your cadre?" Sam asked. Selina kept a watchful eye on the board. "Meeting with Gen C. We've hit a bit of a snag." "What kind of snag?" Veronique asked. The woman straightened. "We've been following a group of dark mod traders trying to locate their supplier. We were getting close, but they upped and vanished. It reeks of Harbinger, but I've no proof yet." "Mr. D'Angelo mentioned them. Who are they?" "Harbinger Robotics." Selina made a sour face. "They'll stop at nothing to get their hands on as much of our tech as possible, especially the dark mods. But we give as good as we get." Sam leaned forward. "What's a dark mod?" "They're blacklisted mods. The really nasty ones like Black Widow Bite, Scorpion Sting, Blue-Ringed Octopus and the demonic Gimpy mod. All illegal to supply or use." There was an awkward silence, and Veronique finally spoke for the group. What's a mod? Oh dear, you lot are green. Another of Joe's pieces left the board, and a strangled cry came from across the table. Mod is the slang term given to transient genetic modifications. A scientist named Dominic Creed pioneered a procedure using carbosilicone and retroviruses to infect humans with controlled expressions of animal genes. Cadres use these mods in the field to give us special abilities. The blank looks remained, and Selina struggled not to roll her eyes. You know what genes are? The stuff in your body that's basically the instruction manual for how you're going to grow? They nodded. Good. Well, imagine you could isolate the gene that allows an owl to see in the dark, or a moth to hear the tiniest sound, and could safely inject that into a person. Not permanently effective, but for a short period of time. That temporary modification to their genome is called a mod. The news was met by snorts and skepticism. She sighed. You're going to make me show you, aren't you? Selina sat back and opened one of the pockets in her trousers, pulling out a few coloured pens. These are mod pens. Each one contains a different mod. Right, let's see what I've got. Eagle Eyes takes too long, and I'm definitely saving this snake mod. She flicked through the collection. Here, this will do. She had a quick look around. Right, we keep this to ourselves, okay? This was meant to be a meet and greet, not a show and tell. Veronique and the boys nodded. Deal. Joe had given up the game and could barely contain himself. Sam watched as Selina rolled up her sleeve and pressed the nib of the pen against her forearm. There was a slight hiss when she pressed the clip, injecting the chemical concoction. Mods take up a lot of energy and can take a while to kick in, depending on how complicated the change is. This one is pretty quick and easy. She held her hand up for inspection. The group leaned forward, staring intently. There! Veronique gasped, pointing at Selina's index finger. Her skin had begun to shimmer, and what looked like small blisters were forming. What is it? The bumps spread across her fingertips until they formed a series of ridges. Gecko fingers. Selina waggled her new climbing apparatus at them. Suck on those, Spider-Man. Oh my God. Sam said what they were all thinking. How are we all getting on in here? Jenny asked, coming into the room. Selina flipped her hands over, and the group quickly turned their attention back to the tribe's board. Terrible, Joe moaned. She's beating me. Fedor nodded. Best day ever. Veronique laughed nervously, trying not to make eye contact with their mentor. Sometime later, after a relentless barrage of questions, Selina left to find her team. Thankfully, Jenny did not notice when she lifted a hand to wave, and an entire clan of ninjas stuck to it. She shoved it behind her back and disappeared. Joe waved sadly. We're going to miss you guys. In the days that followed, and under Gen C's careful supervision, Veronique and Fedor each attempted their first fold. Veronique had chosen her family's box in the Bouffes Parisien Theatre. Her earliest, most magical memories were of standing tiptoe at the balcony, enthralled by the tales below. They had fueled her penchant for theatrics. For Fedor, it had been the clearing near their house, his refuge from his father, his brothers, and constant feelings of inadequacy. He homed in on the damp, woody smell of the log pile and the weathered tree trunk reaching for the safe, comforting picture in his mind. Sam had battled with this part. So many places were tainted. Arthur's Rest had never felt the same since they had returned to England without Sophie, and he had no desire to think about nor go back to Africa. Sammy, don't leave me. He backed away from that memory, rubbing his scar. No thanks. He wasn't sure he had a safe place. Mr. D'Angelo's office was still fresh in his memory, so he focused on that. Its rows of crowded shelves and cluttered walls, the comfy leather armchairs, the amazing farsight window, the clinking sound of the crystal brandy decanter, the oaken smell of the sideboard, Salvador's desk brimming with books, and Sam focused on their titles, even remembering the strange scroll with the odd-looking temple marking which the director had been so quick to put away. But it wasn't working. He didn't move. Then he thought of a better place, a place where every sight and smell had been ingrained on his memory. The corners of his mouth twitched as he began remembering. Ready? He felt the monk's warm touch, then the surge as he pushed his own energy into the stepping stone. The floor he sat on became cold and hard. The faint buzz of fluorescent lighting echoed around them. Sam opened his eyes and grinned. Beside him, in the gloom, a familiar chunky metal foot draped in heat-seared plastic greeted him. He gave it a quick rap with his knuckles. It was real. Gen C looked around. Where are we? Officially, nowhere, Sam shrugged. Level 273 doesn't exist. What? We shouldn't be here. Gen C stood up. The movement triggered a newly installed motion alarm, and the lights began to pulse. To make matters worse, a siren on the ceiling began to screech. The monk looked down at Sam with disappointment. This isn't what I had in mind. Sorry, Sam suddenly felt bad, but this is the best I could do. Well, you'd better try again. The monk sat down and placed his hand over Sam's. Now hurry. I don't fancy explaining this to Bade. Who? Sam remembered hearing that name before. Never mind, just get on with it. Sam closed his eyes, the siren piercing his concentration. Hundreds of images flashed before him, and he fought to grasp one. His school, his bedroom, the river where he had fished with his father as a child. Why'd they not pick that? Mr. D'Angelo's office swam into view again, and his attention was drawn to the temple scroll on the desk. What was that place? He felt Gen C's hand warming up and the stepping stone tingling in his sweaty palm. Wait! Images were flashing before him in a maddening kaleidoscope of memories. In the distance, he heard the faint sound of the speed lift door opening, followed by the pounding of heavy feet. He tried to shake his head, clear his thoughts. The monk's energy surged through him, and the cruiser sprang to life. Sam heard muffled shouts, and felt something bump into him. It broke his contact with Gen C, and he toppled over. He opened his eyes. The siren had stopped. Thank God. The lights had also ceased flashing. In fact, they had gone out altogether. Strange. Sam put his hands on the floor to push himself up, but instead of cool, smooth tile, his palms found cold, gritty stone. He sat bolt upright, eyes wide in the gloom. Wherever he was, it smelled old, musty and damp. He closed his fingers around the cruiser, but it was not there. Panic gripped him. Patting the ground blindly, he started praying. Nothing. Sam swore. Great! Failed at the first hurdle. This was not good. His heart pounded. He looked around, eyes adjusting to the almost non-existent light. He wondered for a moment whether he was back in the cursed deep end. But the smell was different. The air tasted foul, stale. He sat panting, trying to calm down, and noticed the faintest crack of light in the darkness to his left. He shuffled forward. The stone floor stayed even, though Sam could feel the edges of the slabs every so often, smooth thin lines between the flush settings. His feet soon encountered something hard, and he stopped. It must be a wall. He spread his legs wider and edged along in the direction of the glow. It was the tiniest of fissures in the mortar. When his fingers traced the joint, the sliver of light faded. Sam tried to peer into the tiny crevice, but could make out very little. The air, however, was cooler and fresher around it. He pushed at the wall. It was solid. He moved back and kicked the barrier with his foot. Nothing. Drawing back, he kicked again. Hard. This time he felt movement, and some plaster crumbled away. Sam redoubled his efforts and booted the wall repeatedly. More mortar broke off, and just when the cramp in his thigh threatened to bring the excavation to an end, the stones toppled outwards. Sam scrambled forward through the hole. It was lighter here. In front of him, a set of steps led down into more darkness. 2 statues, holding what appeared to be spears, flanked the top of the staircase. Their long, muscular backs turned to him. A shaft in the ceiling lit the chamber. It cast its spotlight on a large stone table covered in centuries of dust. Sam moved away from the hole, leaving a trail on the dusty floor. The shadows at the edges of the narrow room were filled with objects of varying sizes, including archaic-looking tools and weapons. He could make out markings on the walls, paintings perhaps. The object in the centre of the room caught his attention when he realized it wasn't a table. Looming out of the darkness, reminiscent of the bow of an ancient ship, was a sarcophagus. Sam moved towards it. The sides were carved with intricate battle scenes and mighty hordes. The lid was a spectacular 3-dimensional relief of, presumably, the coffin's host, an imposing figure with thick arms folded over a long spear, its tip resting on the warrior's lips. An object on its chest caught Sam's eye. He reached out. It was light, smooth, and several inches long. Sam! The boy jumped, stuffing the object in his pocket. Jency emerged from the gloom, and Sam swore, "You scared 7 hells out of me!" "Sorry," the monk muttered, "but where the hell are we?" "I have no idea. You must know. You're here too." Folding leaves a signature, and once I'd explained my presence to the archive guards, I was able to follow you. Thanks for that, by the way. Sorry, do you have the crucible? I can't find it. It broke. Sam could not see the monk's face clearly, but could tell from his tone that he was not happy. The boy suddenly felt 2 feet tall. "Oh, God, I'm sorry, Jency. I had no idea this would happen." "It's not your fault." But his tone conveyed little warmth or reassurance. "It may yet be fixed, but I'll not know until we get back, which I think we should now do. Who knows what sacred resting place we are defiling?" He beckoned into the gloom. Sam looked around one last time, torn between his guilt and a strong desire to explore the mysterious catacomb. Just as he turned away, his eye caught sight of the only writing on the sarcophagus. He committed the runes to memory and followed Jency back through the hole.